All right, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning. I'm Tatia Davenport, CASBO CEO, and we're going to have folks introduce themselves on our panel this morning in just a couple minutes. But I want to first share with you that we are recording this, so you won't have to take furious notes. We do have the session recorded, and we'll be sharing that afterwards. But I kind of wanted to start with just a welcome, and also just sharing a little bit around the vision for CASBO as we approach this entire conversation around AI in school business. First and foremost, I want it to be very approachable for all of us, a conversation that we're unified, and we're a community of folks having this really intricate and meaningful conversation around AI and how we use it in school business. You know, we have an opportunity that I'm not sure we've had for at least a long time, where we aren't reacting to a crisis, but we're actually determining how we will use AI and these tools in gaining efficiency, in helping us with analysis and lifting our heads so that we can do more relationship building and collaboration. So in some ways, we're making history together. And I'm excited that we're able to walk this path together with the varying levels of knowledge and interest and curiosity. No one is a subject matter expert at this particular point, but it's our opportunity to do so. We're at ground zero in the use of AI in school business. But I have zero doubt that it can change the way that we work in school business, and it will be truly transformative. As fast as we deliver the information, even today, what we talk about will probably be obsolete in the next few months with the exponential growth of this topic. So we're going to be together for a long path here, working through applications, the privacy aspects of it, and again, sharing this community. I envision that we are going to be a source of both knowledge and, in some cases, you know, creating white papers, creating case studies, you know, advocating around our AI practices. But I also think we have the opportunity to create some buying power, to work with our vendors, to not in a one-on-one, district by district push for changes and improvements, that we as a collective voice can help drive some of those changes as well. So again, I want CASBO and all of us to participate as incredibly, meaningful contributions. We're going to be helping create guardrails with the state. One of my concerns is that instead of guardrails, we end up with handcuffs if we don't get ahead of this. And to be really candid, the state is not known to be innovative in their practices. So again, just an opportunity for us to accelerate into that conversation. So with that, I welcome you, and I'm going to first introduce our panel, and I'm going to start with Tiffany, please.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tiffany Norton. I'm the Chief Innovation and Information Officer for Desert Sands Unified School District. So I oversee all of technology, the network side of the house and the ed tech side of the house.
Welcome. Robert.
Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Lomeli. I'm an attorney with Lozano Smith. And I wanted to just start out by telling everyone that at one point or another, I feel like I've checked off any number of those categories that were on the quiz. So it varies. It can go from I have no idea how this works to, oh, okay, I understand this. And I feel like I'm a trailblazer. So I feel like as we all go along in this journey, you're going to go through all of those stages. At any rate, in addition to working for Lozano Smith, I work out of the San Luis Obispo office. I typically support the municipal side of the house and act as a city attorney. However, I am part of the artificial intelligence working group. In addition to that, I also am an adjunct law school professor, and I have been working on integrating AI through the law school process and helping new law school students utilize AI to become better efficient at not only law school, but at their future careers within the law. And so I'm just excited to be a part of this, to identify the uses, and really just to help identify and push forward AI and doing it in a responsible manner.
Thank you, Robert. Thomas.
Welcome, AI trailblazers and explorers. Thomas Ton here. I'm Executive Director, Technology Services, Huntington Beach City School District, coming to you live from Orange County in Southern California. So welcome.
Thomas, why don't you get us started with just a foundational sort of definition of AI, you know, and kind of how we're defining that in this space.
To be in that terms where folks can access it, and we're thinking as artificial intelligence, skipping the discussion on large language models and technology behind it, but as a companion to your work in a way to explore, and almost like having the way I saw the example, it's almost like a sidecar, and you got your friend in the sidecar and can help you out. So that kind of artificial intelligence, extra brain power, and the ability tapping in the knowledge and bringing up forward ideas and with different ways of thinking that you wouldn't be able to think of on your own in a very quick and rapid process.
Thanks. You know, a friend of mine introduced me to Ray Kurzweil, a futurist who for 3 decades has talked about human and machine relationship, that sidecar relationship. And this was just mind-boggling to me. After 80 years of computation and this exponential growth, the speed of computers when we first started in terms of calculations per second was something like 0.00007 calculations per second. And the last point measured was 34 billion calculations per second, which is a 20 quadrillion% increase in speed. And again, we keep talking about exponential growth where that compounds so quickly. But interesting facts, but while the speed has changed consistently, in that manner, it doesn't really matter what the technology is, right? It's really about speed and how we assess and adapt to that speed of calculation. The technologies are going to change. So just some interesting background there. And I want to jump right in with a discussion around how you have formally or informally, used AI in your district. What's the measurable impact that you might have right now? And I'm going to direct that to start to you, Tiffany.
Thank you, Tasha. And to kind of piggyback before I get into answer that question on what you just said, there's a good quote that I like to share from Dr. Kareem Lakhani. And I know that there's hesitation sometimes around using artificial intelligence. And Dr. Lakhani says artificial intelligence won't replace humans, but humans with artificial intelligence will replace humans without artificial intelligence. So when you think about that sidecar kind of idea, like your personal assistant to help you kind of get through. So in our school district, I'm in Southern California, La Quinta, Palm Springs area. We had Hurricane Hillary kind of came through a couple months ago, and we had a flood mitigation that needed to happen. And so when you're in a time of extreme situation where you need to move plans forward very quickly, oftentimes things can get missed just by the sheer amount of volume of work that needs to be done in a short amount of time. And so our business services department utilized generative AI, which is like a ChatGPT type model, to help support the writing of those flood mitigation plans, not to write them for us, but to make sure that we're not missing anything and crossing all those T's and dotting all those I's. On the education side of the house, we're in the educating phase, and we're making sure that our teachers understand the difference between using AI as a tool to enhance instruction and enhance student engagement with the content that they're learning on a daily basis.
On the measurement pieces, the 4 we use to measure value, the one you want to keep in front of us are time, cost, quality, and quantity. I can do things faster, I can do things cheaper, higher quality, provide better services, both on the instructional and academic side of the house. How we've applied it in our district, in our cabinet agenda, we have a standing artificial intelligence item. So it's always on the radar every week. So new items and as a rapid development, new things are happening. We had our chief business officer use the AI to create and simplify our budget-friendly guide. We've had on the instructional side a Flex Week professional development. We're still in the very early stages. We're trying to just even educate people what it's about. For transportation interviews, a very specialized item, but our transportation department used it to help generate interview questions and review them with that sidecar concept for folks on the panel who weren't transportation experts. More recently, I've used it for a program called E-Rate to create a request for proposal. I don't do it every year, so I'm not very good at it, but running through it, saying, please create for me a request for proposal for E-Rate wireless upgrade. It provided the legal areas I need to remember. So you know what? I didn't remember that one. So it added some, and also most recently I had to do a letter of recommendation. I went to ChatGPT, checked the job description. I say I need a 1 letter recommendation, 3 paragraphs, and make it sound like a middle school level of writing. And that tangibly saved me at least an hour. So those are some applications we have in our district.
We're in also to piggyback on Thomas, we're in the process of wrapping up our LCAP, right? And doing all that writing. And so our LCAP coordinator is using generative AI to help support some of the grammar checks, making sure that there are commas in the right place, not too many exclamation points, that kind of thing. And then also the tense of the writing so that everybody, because we all contribute our pieces based on our focus of work. And so to make sure that everyone's writing in the same tense and we're not using we and our, that we're using our district name, things like that. So we're using it as a fact checker as well.
So what we've seen from a legal standpoint across various sectors within the public is really, it coincides with what Thomas and Tiffany were saying. It's primarily being used by staff members to increase their efficiency and to make certain tasks that might be laborious or might take up a lot of time, to shorten the time frame that they have to spend on those while also increasing the efficiency. What I will say is that it also is very, we see it in varying degrees based on the comfort level of individuals with the use of AI. So you may have some individuals that are not very comfortable with it, that'll use it maybe sparingly, while you have others who have really taken to it, are comfortable with the use of AI, are comfortable with the use of ChatGPT, and sometimes those are the individuals that are more pushing the bounds of how or when they utilize this generative AI. We've seen it used for generation of field trip forms. We've seen it used primarily, a lot of use we've seen in individuals using it within SPED for IEP, setting IEP goals. We've also been able to confirm that there have been some employees and or administrators that have utilized it in helping them to craft employee evaluations. Obviously, with all of those, it brings up some of the things that we'll discuss as this discussion progresses, when we get into kind of these privacy considerations and ethical considerations of use. However, it is really one of those things where the use that we're seeing is consistent with the fact that individuals are using it as that sidecar. They're not utilizing it solely to make decisions for them, or utilizing it solely to do a complete task for them. They're simply utilizing it to increase their efficiency.
Yeah, when we look at these large buckets, right, there's analysis of a tool and a budget and a spreadsheet. There is comparative analysis. Hey, look at this contract from last year to this year. What are the areas that have changed in this contract? AI is able to extract those and then prompt you to look deeper at those new terms, right? So we've got this comparative analysis. And as we start to connect the systems around us, we'll have more of a predictive analysis. This has happened in attendance, and it's a heads up flag versus waiting for us to run that report and look reflectively in the rear view to see what happened. So we've got this entire field of analysis. Automation is certainly one of the primary tools. It's really strong at communication. Again, we've heard of crafting letters. We see our districts taking a new law, a legislative law, and comparing that with their existing standards or compliance practices. And again, highlighting where their existing practice might be out of line with the newer requirements. So again, lots of different types of analysis, communication, automation, but it's also an important place to bring up the fact that that it does also want to please us, and AI makes up answers. And that's where we go back to this sidecar. You've got to have the human oversight of the answers, the knowledge base to know when information is incorrect. We'll continue to talk about that, but I just like to introduce that topic of hallucinations. AI does hallucinate. It aims to please, and it will give you a legal reference that never ever took place. And so it's one of our cautions as we jump into this. But now that you've shared some of the ways in which you have applied AI, I'm curious as to some of the main challenges that you have had as you went about those steps towards integration of AI.
I think because we're so early in the game in the development, and there's no really distinct leader and no one's got a body of expert to say, oh, I am the expert. I think we'll start with the basics first. I want to build on the comment Robert had about the comfort level. Start with the people. You've got folks there, they're hearing the term AI. There's a giant AI hype cycle, but they don't know where or how to engage. So taking time to educate folks. For example, on the instructional side of the house last summer during a teacher professional development flex week, we had 30 teachers appear and just have the discussion about what AI is. From that, I was able to learn, I've got now 30 points of light in my district who I know are interested in AI. I shared also in terms of the education piece, how we have a standing item in our cabinet meeting where people talk about how they use AI. And also we use a technology minute, I use anyway, a technology minute newsletter just to get folks familiar. For example, I put, what is a prompt? To give them the language to help engage AI, and then eventually to build, as Robert mentioned, that comfort level so they can start dipping their toes into it. So now I know what it is. Now I can feel some comfort with it. And with that leads to greater use, and with that greater productivity and efficiency gain. So that's, I think, one of the challenges, just to bring everyone else along, to grow them.
We're following along those same lines when it comes to our certificated staff. So our teachers and our school site staff, we are choosing to educate. So we've held a couple of what we call AI playgrounds. They're optional. The first one was just, hey, come hang out with us for an hour. We're going to give you a brief introduction to what AI is. And then here's a choice board of some tools that we found that we are kind of curating. Play with them, ask us questions. And at the end of that, we opened it up for just questions and concerns, really just giving people a place to share, hey, this is cool, but I'm really afraid about this, and this, so that we can continue to educate and grow. Our second playground was focused around the 5 big ideas of AI, which are perception, representation and reasoning, learning, natural interaction, and societal impact. And we really took a minute just to have good, solid, deeper discussions around those 5 big ideas and how they impact us at a school site.
So one of the things I can add, just more from a general perspective, and it really fits along the same lines as Thomas and Tiffany, and it was one of the things that I appreciated in the new guidelines that were put out by the state for AI use, is the training, the emphasis on training. There really is a big emphasis on training, and that's one of the things that we've also been trying to emphasize with clients and really as a firm as well, is ensuring that proper training goes out. And I appreciated the fact that they identified 3 different levels of training, right? Starting from the executive level, legal and personnel, and then moving down into implementation, and then finally general workforce, because I think it is very important that the individuals who will make the decisions on how this will be implemented, they do need to have that general understanding and knowledge of how it would work, how it would impact individuals within districts or organizations. And then that will help to bring them to a level of comfort, going back to that level of comfort, that then they can pass that along, so that individuals who may not realize how they can use it, if they should use it, it would really clarify a lot of that for them. And I think it would increase the efficiency and kind of sweep away some of that, just kind of that, it would demystify the use of AI.
Yeah, thank you. We've got a couple of questions coming in I want to address our attention to for a few moments before we go into that ever popular topic of privacy and ethics and all those legal requirements. But besides ChatGPT, what are some of the most common powerful AI tools that folks are using? I'll start. We see Microsoft Copilot. It's AI built into the entire Microsoft suite. You'll see at conference, we do a pretty beautiful demo of this, right? A budget change. It takes our Excel spreadsheet, analyzes where the significant impacts and differences are, creates a board report, moves to PowerPoint with talking points in that PowerPoint, including graphs and the like. So Microsoft Copilot is very popular, and I'd love to hear from the rest of our panelists.
We've tried playing around with the Google Gemini. I know this for those of you who have it for workspace, there's a few conditions we haven't turned it on for the organization, but as an individual, as you use it, it's pretty interesting. So you're right, Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini, I know Claude is out there also. Some specific apps, ones that we've used, I know in our cabinet, I've heard our CBO and Assistant Soup of Ed Services use, is one called Gamma. And they feed it pictures and they feed it stats. And I just was in a meeting about 2 minutes ago on Prop 28, and the drawings that people had, they fed it to the and it came up with a very nice presentation summary of all the information there. So Gamma, it was one that I've seen used twice recently. So
Gamma's new for us too. I've also heard about EdPat. And if you, for example, upload your LCAP into that, it'll create an executive summary for you. Conmigo is one, if you know Khan Academy. And then it seems like there's every tool that you can think of is like now featuring AI, right? But those are the ones that I've heard of.
Yeah, I would agree with Thomas and Tiffany. I mean, the biggest players are OpenAI, Microsoft, and Google. And even in a lot of these other third-party applications that feature AI, they're primarily going to be based off of that algorithm that's generated by those three companies. So they're really kind of the nexus there.
So another question, has the panel explored any business process automation applications such as accounts payable automation tools? I saw something later there that talked a little bit about payroll, right, type applications. We at CASBO are, we're going to talk about this at the end. We are building an innovation lab where we will be testing and again, trying to use buying power of the entire, collective state to negotiate some of these because many of them are for pay, right? They're an add-on, so you'll be taking that up. But in regards to that, yes, we have piloted a payroll software that looks at payroll processing at the county and district level. It maps where the worker, I'm getting an email. I'm now looking in this Excel sheet. Now I'm entering it to my payroll system. Oh, I got another email. At the end of the day, it produces a process map and shows us where inefficiencies are in regards to rework. We had to go back 7 steps, that cost. There's an error that certainly flags for when folks aren't getting their paycheck correctly. That's going to be a problem for our districts. But then also maybe there's different processes that clerk 1 or 2 or 3 are doing something differently. So it focuses in on where there is inefficiency and where there is efficiency. And so we're going sort of, business unit by business unit, looking for those types of solutions that are out there, very specific to that particular process. Again, in that case, payroll. Open it up. Let's go with you, Tiffany. What do you have to say about those process?
I know that our purchasing department, we just had executive cabinet yesterday, and they are currently looking at a couple, but we haven't decided on anything quite yet.
So, one of the key points that we want to emphasize here is that the existing systems that you are using are all building in some level of artificial intelligence. So a great starting point is to take those pain points of yours, payroll being an example, and working with that payroll software provider to say, what is your plan for AI? And then again, if we create, which we'll talk about, a community to share this information, we've got the same software providers out there. CASBO representing the districts in California can say, we need AI to do this in these areas versus all of us going district by district. So a good starting point is figure out who you've got, what they're doing in AI and what their roadmap is, and then assess that based on if that's useful. There's a lot of bells and whistles out there that's just useful nonsense. So we really need it to be, instead of just waving a flag of I'm using AI, something that's really going to have an impact in your district.
Yes. Building on that, there is a definite hype wave with AI, and there's AI I saw an AI insurance article the other day, very interesting piece. But with all the rapid development, I think it's important as we look at the challenges of bringing AI to be productive for us, is to actually have someone, maybe not their entire job, but at least a little brain trust that you can rely on. And not just in the business side of the house, but also school administrators, teachers, just to get that conversation going. So when you've got that, so when someone finds a discovery, it doesn't fragment your organization, but just to keep on top of it. Again, 6 months from now, AI will look completely different than it does right now, but to at least stay on top of it, to have someone who's responsible for or a team for continuous monitoring for AI tools. And one of the things we budgeted for the coming year was probably with our tech services team going to budget to have chat GPT teams just to get the team on it. And our county is offering AI training for everyone down to administrative assistants, just to bring AI more lively and more productive and bring it to the masses.
So as we get these questions about listing out these tools, we're going to do that in a different venue, which is a community that we're going to talk about at the end of this session. So we will list all of that information out in terms of who we've suggested thus far. I'm going to move the conversation along and we'll continue to answer questions as we go, but I want to get to that really important ethical and privacy considerations. I'm going to lean first here on Robert to talk about that and what we should expect to see and ask as we have these AI tools and solutions coming in.
Sure. And so this is really a loaded topic. That's quite a bit here that we can discuss. And first and foremost, I would say that kind of to address the hallucination area is that what we've found, and I think what a lot of the researchers have found too, is that the hallucinations will typically be caused because there's no grounding logic that the AI system can draw from. And a lot of that relates back to the prompting engineering and how you prompt it. So a lot of times you can download information that is accurate and is up to date and current. And then based off of that information, you can ask AI to reference that in providing you an answer. And so that will significantly reduce any hallucinations that would arise. And again, this kind of leads back into that the training aspect of it, right? It is training individuals and how to increase the efficiency and the effectiveness of AI and learning how to actually generate accurate prompts to be able to provide accurate information. And so part of that really lends itself to the ethical and privacy considerations is, can like a chat GPT be utilized in helping you as a staff member to draft IEP goals? It absolutely can. However, it also involves this potential danger of releasing very private, confidential student information to this entity. Now, what we have found through various testing and really looking at a lot of terms and conditions is that this is a primary issue as it pertains to those free AI tools, because typically when you utilize a free tool, they are then going to take that information to train their model. And so then they will be taking that information to train it. And so there's still this mystifying effect of what happens to the information. But at some point, I think we can all agree that it's being transmitted at some point to that that provider. And so we want to be very careful about it, because for all intents and purposes, unless a district or an organization is providing a paid service to their employees to be able to utilize it, it's likely that in trying to become more efficient, they won't pay the monthly service fee that they would need to ensure this privacy. They'll use the free tools, the tools that are more readily accessible, and in so doing, they could potentially expose a lot of this private information that they shouldn't be exposing, and could lead to exposure legally. You also have potential uses of utilizing a chat GPT to kind of come up with like student discipline log entries, right? So anytime a student gets disciplined, then these administrators or teachers or staff would need to provide a summary of what happened. And so ChatGPT or Copilot or any of these other AI systems have an ability to quickly and accurately do that and cut down on efficiency and time spent on that. Again, however, we want to be careful of the information that we input. If we are going to use that, then it needs to be done in an anonymized fashion to ensure that there is no protected information that's being provided. And so really, that's the thing that we need to protect against, is ensuring that we're not, that staff and that administration is cognizant of the fact that we don't want to use these in a manner that will expose that protected information and raise these privacy concerns. And as far as ethical considerations, it kind of goes to a term called alignment or super alignment, right, with AI. And so what that really relates to is that we essentially want to get to a point where the use of AI and what we need it to do and what we want it to do align with one another. We want to make sure that AI, in performing its tasks, will do the tasks in the manner in which we would want it to perform the task. One of the main kind of examples that they talk about would be an AI that was built solely to maximize the production of paper clips, right? And they kind of go down the rabbit hole of this AI would then, manipulate markets and do absolutely everything it could in order to just maximize the amount of paper clips it would produce. Well, what we want to do is make sure that through the human in the loop process and ethical rollouts of these items, that AI is doing the tasks that we want it to do, but it's doing so in an ethical manner, and it's doing so in the manner that we really want it to do so. And so that's one of the things that we worry about during rollout, especially with some of the individuals that are really the early adopters of these items. They will push those bounds more so than some individuals who would really wait to see what kind of guidance comes out. Ethical considerations also go towards utilization of AI in making employment decisions. I know Thomas was mentioning that they had they had recently used it to come up with questions, right, to be able to ask potential interviewees, which is a great use of it. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to then kind of hand over the entire hiring process to an AI system that's going to go through and basically analyze resumes and look at cover letters and look at work experience and then come up with a list of its best candidates. Because as we've seen, depending on the data upon which it's trained, that can lead to biased results. It can lead to skewed results. And so when we do look at the ethical considerations, we also want to make sure that the data on which these AI systems are trained, that we have reviewed that data, that staff reviews that data, and they continue to review the data to make sure that there isn't some inequitable solutions or inequitable decisions that are being implemented by AI. So it's just this wide space, and it's one of those reasons that we always caution clients to really roll this out in a responsible manner, but to make sure that individuals like Thomas or Tiffany are involved in the process and that they stay in the process to make sure that they can monitor that these uses are being done effectively and that they're not violating any of these privacy or ethical considerations.
We're having conversations in our district too about how soon is too soon to write a policy as opposed to guidelines, because things are changing so quickly we've been working on this all year and still feel like we're behind, right? And so if we're writing policy, board policy doesn't get changed very quickly or very often, right? But if we're writing guidelines that we can edit and change as new tools and new considerations come into mind, we live in a level of data privacy, but adding AI in through a guideline lens rather than a strict policy that is appropriate today, but 2 days from now is already going to be out of date.
One of the things with technology, what we learned from our existing technologies of the internet, the web, social media, once information gets out there, you can't control it. It wants to be free. It's running wide in the wild. So one of the things we advise people is to look, I think the concept is called data smog or data exhaust. Be careful of what you put into these systems, because once it's there, it's being, who knows how it's being used or used to train the system. Depending on the software that you have, I think ChatGPT Teams has a privacy feature, but again, things are happening so rapidly. You really need to be on top of it, of what that means, privacy, when you turn that piece on. So, and also remember that as you're looking at different vendors increasingly promoting their AI, whatever it might be, the Student Data Privacy Act, the whole reason make sure that they're compliant with that, if they've ever heard of it, I hope. But again, just some things to consider in terms of privacy. Be mindful of what you feed to the system. Again, once it's out in the wild, it's in the wild, and be mindful of things that vendors promoting their AI pieces, the Student Data Privacy Act. So.
Yeah, there's going to be an abundance of direction on this topic. And I just want to share, if you go to our site and under advocacy, you type AI, I think 10 references come up. I've been asked to and have met with the Federal Department of Education on AI in business practices, right? Because there's going to be a very lengthy debate on the instructional side and the use in the classroom. But I've been really pushing for the use of AI to help with our labor shortage, to help automate, to make it a more fulfilling role for folks in some of the work that we do. So just know there will be an abundance of, but I want to bring you to a couple of things that are relatively new. We're going to post this in the webinar here, but also we will have this in the new AI community that we're going to announce at the end of this. It's the State of California Gen AI Guidelines for Public Sector Procurement. That is the first out. It's for the agencies to use, but you can start to kind of envision that we would be asked, right, as an extension of that for some of those practices. Secondly, we will be adding some sample policies and privacy policies, again, to the community. But a couple right in front of us right now are two bills, SB 1288 and AB 2652. That's SB 1288 and AB 2652, which ask for a workforce to define some of these guardrails for public education. And I've reached out to our superintendent of public education, Tony Thurman, expressing that the business side has to be a part of that voice. And I will be working on those should they go through, which I'm pretty confident that they will. Those are the only two bills I will predict will get some support to pass through, as they do put guidelines onto or guide rails up. But again, when we think about government, it has not always, we're decades behind in terms of innovation. So we really want to bring those ROIs, those case studies, those white papers of how AI is being used in districts to facilitate the speed at which and the simplicity at which we can employ and deploy our AI solutions. All right, I'm going to jump over to a few more questions here from Patrick. AI will have a significant impact on staff. What are some of the strategies being discussed of how we proactively get organized labor on board, minimize information and chaos? I will acknowledge there's a lot of fear around this, that it's going to replace roles. And one of our first points of, I guess, a response to that is, again, we've got this labor shortage. So the question is, how do we help our labor that is in place lift some of that administrative burden. I'll start with that, and then let's go to the team to hear, concerns that you've had or considerations relating to labor.
Yeah, those fear pieces are, again, we fear what we don't understand. So I think that we're an education, we're a people business on the business side and the academic side, and bring the people on board, the associations of folks feeling threatened, we fear what we don't understand, bring them aboard, show them. And I think the model right now about, it's not going to be like the movie Terminator where things come to the end, but as a sidecar co-pilot friend who can help you be more efficient, as Robert had mentioned, be more effective. And in doing so, we build the two things that we can't buy in this world: time and enthusiasm or joy. It sounds like, oh, this emotional piece, but if we can get greater enthusiasm in effectiveness and efficiency on the business side of the house, on the academic side of the house, I get more time for kids, more time to make processes better. I get, hey, what's wrong with enjoying your job? If you enjoy your job, bring joy and enthusiasm to the job. So that's the part of it. So I think that we can do by bringing folks on board, dispelling that fear. Come with us. We're not going to, we'll do this together. Don't be afraid of being punished for using AI. That's not going to happen yet. If anything, we need to discover together how it can be useful and how we can support you. So, people first.
We're doing the same thing with people first and trying to dispel the fear. We're in the process of developing an AI task force that's inclusive of people across the district, from parents, students, business side of the house, education side of the house, special ed side of the house, just a good collaboration of and well mix of a little bit of everybody, so we can start looking at and having conversations about the impacts for our district specifically, and then how do we mitigate those? How do we support and train and educate and get the message out that it's okay to do this, and we want to support and make sure that you have the tools that you need, and tools that are going to keep safety at the top, and just those helpful tips and tricks. So our task force will be launching in a couple of weeks, but we're excited to bring everybody to the table to have conversations.
And also,
So-
go ahead, Robert.
I was just going to say, so I've had the opportunity of doing both employee and employer side negotiations. And so I think it's kind of a mixture, right? There's the immediate impact, and then there's a long-term impacts that are potential. And I think both approaches, like what Tiffany was saying, is important, as well as what you brought up, Tatia. In the immediate impacts, I don't think I've ever heard of either side saying, I just have too much time in the day, right? It's always, I don't have enough time in the day. I have too many things to do. Is there a way that I can cut down on the amount of tasks that I require to do throughout the day, so that I can really focus on those things during the day that I feel are more impactful or most impactful to what it is that I've been hired to do? And so I think immediately AI is going to help with that. And I think that long term, really, like what Tiffany said, creating these committees and creating these working groups to be able to really identify what the long term impacts would be is absolutely beneficial, and it'll help to address a lot of the concerns I think that labor has on either side. I don't necessarily think it's going to have huge immediate impacts. If anything, it's really going back to what Thomas said. It's going to make the workload less. It's going to increase, their effectiveness and the joy that they have. Hopefully, it's going to increase the joy in what they do at work.
Thank you. And just final comments on that. We are a part of Ed Coalition, which is the management groups. You think the school boards, the superintendents, county soups, and CASBO as the management organizations. And we also have our, CTA, SEIU. All of us are together in the Education Coalition, and we certainly discuss budget, as well as areas that we can hear what concerns are from both, sides, if you will. And kind of but work through those and get clarity on those. So there's a lot of activity in that area. I want to get to our final, just sort of future direction. Are there any technologies or opportunities, in terms of application that you're looking at right now for your districts?
Playing with our, working with our technology, TOSA, there's a part where you can build your own chat GPT. And for fun and just to see how it works, we made a second grade chat GPT. We fed it our district strategic plan, the learner profile, what we want for students. We fed it the California standards for second grade, just to get a feel for what it's like. And I think while it's not complete yet, as we're walking the journey, we're learning more and more about that. So if you needed to create a lesson plan for second grade to talk about, the math subject or whatever it might be, or create a rubric, for example, it could do that. For those are discoveries that we had. But I think it's blue sky in terms of application, but the closer we can keep it to, our business is all about students, better teaching, better learning, better collaboration through technology, faster teaching, better teaching, joyful teaching and learning. I think we use that as our metric. You talked earlier about how we measure value. If we keep that up there along with the other metrics, time, cost, quality, and quantity, that'll help us kind of separate the chaff from the grain in terms of that. So
We're doing something very similar. We have a computer programmer in our site and department that is working on building something right now too. We took the high school route, high school mathematics. That's where we started, just to see how far we could push it. What hallucinations were there? What parameters did we need to put on it so that we could kind of own it, if you will, and it would be something that was safe for students to use. On the education side of the house, we're looking at Magic School. They have a student AI that is run by the teacher, which I think is interesting. We haven't gotten into any agreements with them or anything yet, but that's what we're looking at. We're also looking at Google Gemini to see how that can play a role. We are a Google district. And then those two that were mentioned earlier, EdPat and Gamma.
There will be no shortage of products and services coming our way. It gets to some of these questions around, how do we vet some of these applications? There's so many checklists and tools and policies coming our way. I'm going to, I see there's still continued questions coming in. We do want to switch to some of our next level discussions relating to AI. So I'm going to do two things. One, we will commit to moving these questions into our newly formed AI community. It's a place for us to share tools, again, checklist, user policies, and the like. You can use this QR code to go in. And again, we've auto-populated with some resources for you already. I also want to mention a couple of things as you do that. The first is that we are going to continue a series of webinars. All of this information is coming at us fast and furious. We want to sort through those issues that are really specific to school business. There's going to be, again, a lot of topics just in education. So we're going to carve off that piece, and we'll have a continued cadence and series of webinars, bringing in subject matter experts from some of those largest absolute experts on both a global and a national level. So look forward to that. We have the community. We will be managing that with our practitioners and subject matter experts. And I think there was a question earlier around private and public partnerships. That really gets to that announcement I shared earlier, that CASBO is building an innovation lab. It's going to be more than just AI. It's really looking at some standard KPIs across education. It's going to include total quality management principles and training to get teams looking at process improvement. But it'll also be a place that we can look at and vet new solutions coming in. And it's also all of this information. We intend to create white papers and case studies, and also, I want to say buying power, but just leverage, again, so that we can go to these individual providers. I think I saw something there about QSS, just as an example. Rather than every district going at an improvement with QSS, let's help drive that R&D and the innovation that we need to affect meaningful change in our own environment. So the Innovation Lab is also something that you can look forward to. I think that is it, but I want to turn it back to our panelists for any closing comments and considerations for our audience today.
I just want to say the fact that you're here today, sitting in a panel conversation around this topic, moves you up one level. Whatever you said in the beginning survey, wherever you put yourself, bump yourself up one level. Participating in these types of conversations and getting those thoughts going around the topic of AI, it's going to be important as we all work together to move the work forward. So thank you for joining us today.
Chiming in on that, yes. Thank you for joining us again. You are truly pioneers by being here today. We didn't even get to the part about talking about how the children and students are already using it. That's for a topic for another day, but be brave, you're not alone. Join the CASBO community that we're putting together on AI. We'll keep the conversation going. Some great questions in the chat. If you're ever in the neighborhood, let's do lunch. So.
I would just echo those sentiments and just realize that you know, AI can at first seem to be a very daunting concept and to really truly comprehend, but once you get into it and once you start getting comfortable with it, you'll really understand that it is truly going to help and be utilized as a tool, and it'll help. Really, familiarity will help dispel any beliefs that it's going to become this Terminator-esque thing right now that's going to take over everything. So thanks for being here.
I echo the appreciation, and just remember, we're all at ground level of something so amazing in terms of a tool for us. So I just, remember that we're making history together. We are not reacting to a crisis. So it's this wonderful opportunity for us to say, man, here is a great application. Here are the important legal and privacy and ethical considerations, but we get a chance to do it together. So this is your community to build your knowledge, build your competence in this area, build trust in the tools and our application therein, and let's grow some subject matter experts from this base of where we are today. Thank you for being here. We look forward to hearing or seeing you on our next webinar in the community. And again, we'll continue the discussion as frequently as we need to keep up with this light speed exponential growth topic. Thank you again.